Hello and welcome to Frontline History. In this series we will be delving into how renowned fighting forces have historically prepared their soldiers for war, and how modern warfighters have learned to achieve a level of lethality at unprecedented levels. What was the training taught and the abilities learned that allowed certain armies throughout history to dominate their known worlds? How was the individual soldier conditioned, from the Spartan hoplite and the Roman legionary to the English archers at Agincourt and the stormtroopers of World War I? How did we learn to be more efficient at killing our enemies while increasing our own survival? The answer is, you train as you fight. If you ask a soldier what the number one challenge of peacetime training is, he might laugh and reply that it's fighting boredom. Most military leaders would argue that it is in fact maintaining an effective fighting force when you have no one to fight. This has been a major obstacle for as long as we've been throwing stones at each other as a species. Nevertheless, the advantages of having your warriors specifically trained to overcome the horrific challenges of war have been proven time and time again. The concept behind training as you fight has been there all along, and it means to provide realistic training in order to desensitize a soldier to the rigors of war, to build constitution in the face of the enemy during the din of battle, and to train muscle memory so that critical actions are instinctive. In this episode, we will be looking at how the Spartan warriors developed themselves for combat and attained their mythical status in history. So get comfy, hit some buttons below, and let's take a closer look.
This is Sparta!
The ancient city-state of Sparta produced what is one of the most iconic and well-recognized warrior societies in history. Known far and wide for their bravery, professionalism, and skill in the battlefield, we continue to recognize and revere them today, 2.5 millennia after they achieved the height of their power. So what set the Spartans apart from their counterparts to earn such renown? The answer is in the details. The most common type of heavy foot soldier in the days of ancient Greece was the hoplite, named for their specific equipment and notable shield. These soldiers dominated ancient Greek warfare from the 7th to the 4th century BC. Traditionally organized into several hundred strong regiments and lined up in ranks of 8 men or deeper, the phalanx was the slow, lumbering tank of the ancient world. The idea of the phalanx was to stand close enough together to operate as one massive battering ram with spears. Each man counted on the cohesion of the unit as much as his neighbors, who protected part of his body with their own shield. A poorly trained phalanx of hundreds might break ranks on the move and begin dispersion, losing the advantage before even joining contact with the enemy. A well-disciplined phalanx could walk or run, thrusting their spears into the opposing phalanx in what became a series of pushing and shoving matches. This ended when one side broke formation, most likely to flee, which often led to the largest casualties during the battle. The phalanx was an easy-to-learn, hard-to-master style of fighting. Its very nature required constant drilling and would demand strict obedience to maintain, otherwise the formation would crumble. Morale was a key component to which side broke first. The importance of this cohesion was recognized when it was noted that a phalanx in battle would walk slightly more to the right, as each man attempted to protect his body with the shield of the man on his right side. Hence the position of honor in a phalanx was the right wing of any army, where the bravest troops could be expected to hold firm. During this day and age, it was a standard expectation that citizens of Greek city-states with sufficient means would equip and make themselves available for a short period of military service. Athens, the greatest rival of Sparta for example, had a policy of compulsory military service from 18 to 20 years of age, with the expectation of being called to serve only during periods of war. Enter the Spartans, whose practices were even considered strange and notably cruel by other Greeks at the time. They prided themselves on their standing army, which idolized exercise, discipline, and their ability to endure any hardship. From a young age, the Spartans are well documented to have undergone some of the most intensive and brutal training of any civilization in ancient history. The word Spartan itself means self-restrained, simple, frugal, and austere. Sparta is certainly an interesting case study. Few cultures began such aggressive selection and education of their soldiers so young. Immediately upon birth, any infants found to be puny or malformed would be discarded and forgotten. There was no room for weakness in Spartan society. Having survived this first test, At age 7, Spartan youths were cut from family ties and given en masse to military boarding schools, where they would remain for the next 13 years as they underwent brutal training even by contemporary standards. The children were to remain barefoot for years and possessed only a single garment. They were expected to steal for anything more than the bare minimum they were given. The ultimate goal of this time was to cultivate skills such as hand-to-hand fighting, stealth, and pain tolerance. Physical, mental, and spiritual toughness was emphasized. Violence was continuously reinforced or encouraged, ensuring the children did not shy away from the thought of injury. The idea of a soldier overcoming death and killing his first opponent was not a concern with Spartan men. A regular tradition and annual rite of passage was to send the boys out into the night to find and kill the strongest of state-owned slaves known as the helots. These helots handled all basic aspects of society, while the Spartans focused on their militarized culture. Any Spartan boy who failed in this ritual or was caught in the process would be severely punished and very much shamed by his peers. Slowly, as they grew into men, Spartan children were expected to also be more refined than you may think. Formal skills such as singing and dancing were taught to round out the finer skills and handle their coordination. Athletic champions were held in high regard and were often paired with strong members of the opposite sex in order to breed the best warriors. Poor fitness, however, was cause for public ridicule, and alcohol, or anything that may cause the body to weaken, was severely frowned upon. Spartans were also allegedly prohibited from possessing gold or coins to discourage distraction from their duties and to prevent the looting and chaos that would follow a battle or a siege. Teenage boys were purposefully malnourished and given only one red cloak per year to wear day in and day out. They had to make their own bedding from river reeds and the environment surrounding them. This may have seemed an odd way to treat your men, even by the standards of the time, but it served to ensure that common hardships that might break lesser armies on the campaign trail, such as famine and a lack of supplies, would not affect a Spartan host. Soldiers from Sparta were now well conditioned to the environment and would finish marching only needing their cloak and what they could scrounge to carry on into battle at a moment's notice. Famed Greek historian Plutarch, which gives us many of our known accounts of the culture, tells us that so strict was their training regimen that the men often looked fondly to the tempo of war and the campaigning life, as this often gave a welcome reprieve from training day in and day out and would allow for more downtime to ensure they were well rested and free from the injuries that accompanied garrison life. Special care was also taken to ensure the bond formed to each man in the army was strong. At the age of 20, the men of Sparta were moved into the barracks and became full-time soldiers. They were now considered full citizens and would be granted the ability to take an honored place in the Spartan battle formation. They would be expected to remain in the barracks regardless of their marital status until the age of 40. Surviving to this age, however, did not mean the end of your military career. As the helot slaves handled most aspects of society, Spartan men were free to focus solely on their military prowess, hoping to one day have an opportunity to die in glorious battle. Despite the expectation that they would remain living in the garrison, Spartan men were expected to foster strong children to restart this entire process. They themselves were expected to remain battle fit as part of the reserve force until at least 60 years of age. Even in times of hardship and decline, men in their 60s were known to be called up to defend supplies and static positions. Unlike the soldiers of other Greek states, who had usually received only a taste of military training by their adult years, the Spartans were raised with it every day of their lives. Every Spartan knew his place and the importance of holding it. Through blood, sweat, and tears, he had earned this right. The idea of defeat, or even retreat in the face of the enemy, was reinforced to be a fate worse than death. In fact, only two classes of people could have their names inscribed on their tombstones: women who died in childbirth and men who fell in battle. This ideology gave us the popular parting cry, "Come back with your shield or on it," supposedly spoken from Spartan mothers to their sons on the eve of their departure for battle. This truly exemplifies the spirit of the Spartan warrior, as the shield was not worn to defend themselves, but the entire formation, and thus represented the common good of all Sparta. A further motivating factor to perform well in battle was to dissuade any notion of cowardice on or off the battlefield, as it would be punished by banning them from making legal contracts, which included marriage, as if any strong Spartan woman would want them at that point. This constant military drilling and years of strict discipline made the Spartans skilled at the ancient Greek style of fighting in phalanx formation. Fear and the idea of a rout was not an issue for the Spartan warrior. The Spartans also outdid their Greek counterparts in unit organization. Where most city-states organized into units several hundred strong, Sparta was different, dividing further down into smaller units containing as few as 32 men. These rhythmic movements were learned over and over again, day and night, to respond from unexpected attacks from the rear or to quickly allow a phalanx to tighten into a narrow formation and advance in unison, all with iron discipline. It was common for severe injuries and even death to occur during these mass drills. All of this ability came together to mold the Spartan host with a level of increased coordination and response, achieving a much higher precision that was beyond many of their opponents at the time. This information on the Spartan war machine was common knowledge at the time and fed into rumors leading into the myth we know today. Knowing this, picture yourself as a Persian slave conscript or Athenian farmer levied to war for the short campaigning months of the year, only to find yourself facing Spartans across the field of battle. Sparta would go on to reach the height of their power after defeating its rival city-state Athens in the Peloponnesian War of 431 to 404 BC. Spartan might was continually challenged by foreign aggression and persistent conflict, notably from Persia and Thebes. After a series of costly defeats, they had lost more citizens than they could replace. The rigid militaristic society that gave them such dominance on the battlefield also restricted their ability to recover quickly. Finally, the Helot slaves, a critical and long abused part of their society, saw their opportunity and revolted. The Spartans would not recover from this upheaval of their societal order, and although they continued to exist for some time after, Sparta itself would only remain as a second-rate power and a shadow of its former glory. Its ideology remained, however, and many European nations now trace their concept of service to the state back to Sparta and its mythical warriors.